Hey, what's going on? Today we're going to upgrade the Creality CR-10S with a new belt tensioner on the Y-axis. So I got this little sucker on, what was it, Amazon. Found it there for about 16 bucks. And I figured we'd go ahead and upgrade the belt tensioner today. I'm going to just struggle my way through this. I haven't even taken off the old one. Actually, I don't even really know how to take off a belt tensioner. I figured I'd record it so you can kind of figure out what happens along the way as you do this. So there was a little bit of assembly that has to come with this. It just comes in a bag and all these little pieces. So if you take a look over here, this is what we have in regard to the pieces. Now these are my tools I'm going to be using in just a little bit, but you'll notice that there's a little tensioner in here. You have some additional M bolts or M screws that we got going on. We're going to have some spacers, and we're going to have this little piece that we're going to run over on our Y-axis. So let's take a look at what we're going to upgrade today. So if you take a look at this, this is what I'm going to be taking off. Frankly, I'm not sure how this is all going to run down, because what I'm thinking I'm going to do is I'm going to take this guy here and I'm going to take this off, and I'm going to try to loop in this bolt here, and it's going to go partially the way through, and I'm just going to take the existing tensioner and I'm going to loop it right on there, and then I'm going to finish putting this all the way through that and kind of linking it up. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's take a look at some of the additional things that I have here on the table. So what you'll notice is that this guy right here is going to fit through this area here, and we're going to be able to put a variety of these pieces onto the various areas here. So you'll notice that we have a few pieces. Let's see here. There's a little spacer here, so that spacer will go on. After the spacer, we'll have this nut, and then that's going to happen right here in between these two areas. And then inside on this middle piece, we're going to have a spacer, and then we're going to have this little guy here. It has a little bearing inside of it. This is where the belt is going to go looping around, and it's going to be sitting there kind of like this. And then we're going to do the reverse on the other side. You're going to have that little metal spacer there, and then the other side of this, we're going to have our bolt and our nut and our little plastic spacer. And then on the outside, we got one more nut to put on there, and that will complete our belt tensioner. But we got a few tools here. So we got 8mm and a 7mm little wrench guy going on here, and we've got some corresponding little Allen wrenches as well, so that we can start taking off the old and putting on the new. So I think I have not messed with this too much. I'm new to the whole 3D printing realm, and it's been a fun experience. I have the Creality CR-10S, and so that's actually what my GoPro's mounted to right now. I'm on the bed right here, and I just kind of flipped it around because I'm usually on this channel just putting my 3D prints as they come up. But I figured as I started doing upgrades to this machine, which I've already done a bunch of them, which I did not record because, you know, just having fun checking this out. I will just continue recording these and showing anybody that wants to figure out how to do this kind of stuff. It's not that hard to kind of figure out how to do some of the upgrades, but every time I've done an upgrade, I've kind of like screwed my machine up for a while, and it's taken me a little bit of time to kind of retune it. So I'm a little nervous on what I'm going to do by taking these tensioners off, but you know what? I think the idea is I had another 3D printer at my work, and I noticed that the belts were getting very, very loose, and I had to do a lot of work with these bolts there, and I figured, why not put a little tensioner on here so it makes it a little easier for me to adjust it as those belts start to get a little bit loose. So here we go. Let's jump into our scene here. All right. First things first is we just need to take off the old. So looks like we got some little nut right here. I think probably where I'll start though is I'm going to take these other things that are mounting it off first. That way, once we do that, there we go, get it loosened up. I'm expecting it to kind of move backwards a little bit. Let's see how far backwards or how loose this belt goes before I go any further. probably something. Alright, trying to loosen that bolt up. It's really really tight in there. There we go. So at this point, I'm just loosening these little pieces. Now what's really nice about the Creality, or at least this particular printer, it seems like you can do quite a bit in terms of adding modifications to it. There's these little, I don't even know what the heck you call them, these little bolts here, and they fit into the rails of a lot of the stuff. So what happens is you put those in the rails, and as you turn it, it will lock itself in there. So I am thinking these are going to be big enough. From what I can tell is I'm going to be mounting this just like this. Now the problem that I'm seeing here is I'm going to want to probably mount it a little bit further in, something right around that area right there. So this is going to go in a little bit further than I normally do. That seems about the right angle. So alright, got that much done. Now what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to take this belt off. Now I'm noticing this isn't really moving back and forth, so let's see here. Oh, there we go. Now I can feel it. Getting a little loose in there. Okay. Now that I've loosened it, I can tell that the belt is really kind of floppy. So that's kind of actually a good sign, because it's making me confident that I'm going to be able to take this thing off and kind of put it around this other piece. Alright, so let's continue loosening that. I'm going to take these guys out completely. If I can get the dang thing in there. There we go. And let's get this other piece out. So I have been printing with this printer for quite a bit of time now. About quite a bit of time in terms of prints. I have done a couple 24-hour prints that were really successful. That was fun. I had a scroll. Actually, I'll show you that right now. What I've done on this printer. It looks really nice. It's the Terminator Rex. That one took, yeah, about 24 hours. I did it about what, 0.2 millimeters. Let's get back to this. Don't be distracting, y'all. I just want to figure out how to put this damn tensioner on your machine, and here I am just talking my ass off. I don't know, this is a live stream. I can't edit myself out. Alright, so I got those bolts out. The next step is I'm going to probably want to see if I could take this out completely. So I did bring some of the pieces to make that happen. Alright. Grab the right one there. Alright, would you look at that? It's nearly off now. So we have the old one somewhat off. I just need to get the belt off. I'm sure there's a way to like get this belt and actually mount it from underneath, but I didn't want to jack with all that. I figured I could slip this on if I just started putting the pieces on. So what I'm anticipating here is that once I take off this nut on this right hand side, is that I'm going to be able to just slide this bolt out and slide that belt right off. I haven't done this yet, so now my 3D printer is out of commission at the moment. By the way, this is not currently turned on. You don't want to have that on. Probably create some bad issues for yourself. So here I am taking out the bolt, and I have some pieces that are likely going to fall off. Let's see here. Mind the camera angle here. Alright. So there you have it. There's the old belt tensioner here. That was just done with a few screws. So this guy was kind of through there, and then these guys were holding it in. Now, let's see here. Let's go ahead and put these guys off to the side. I'll put this in here for now. We'll clean that guy up later. For next up, we're going to be able to put this tensioner on now. So we should be able to slide this guy in here. Let's see if these are going to fit. If not, we're going to be kind of screwed, because I'm going to have to go and figure out what else we can do. And I think these guys are going to fit. So essentially what we're going to do is I'm going to slide this unit in there. Let's go ahead and do that now. See how far we can get it in. It's actually kind of a pain in the ass. What I'm trying to do is line these guys up. Okay, we got that first part in. So I'm putting them sideways so you can kind of slide in. Okay, we've got that in there, so that's nice. So I'm gonna really like this. Use the belt tensioning. Now you see, I did not assemble it. We have all those other pieces that we were talking about just a minute ago. I'm going to transition to those. So we're really going to be working from this group right here. And what we're going to be doing is creating this. And one thing that's interesting about me is I'll likely drop these things like 5 or 6 times. I'm going to be like crawling around on my floor in this room. Because I don't know, it's going to be a little difficult. So what I want to do is I want to get this as close as I possibly can to here, and then I'll kind of adjust it and I'll tighten it down in just a little bit right now. So the very first step is we're going to want to start putting this bolt through here. The first thing I'm going to want to do is I'm going to put this in there, and just so you can kind of understand, I'm going to put these on there so you can kind of see what it's going to look like. Then I'm going to have to put this whole thing all the way through the bolt. That's what I'm going to be doing. Essentially putting these two things, that's going to come almost all the way down to this end right here. So it's going to take a second. My hands are likely going to be in the way when you look at this other shot. So let's go ahead and get started and getting that little piece. And get going. All right. So here we go. Is it going to be the first thing I do is drop this? No, okay. At least I got that piece in there. Alright. Next I need to get my bolt. I keep calling it a bolt. It's actually a nut. It's a nut that I need to put in there. I always confuse those things. Okay. So I don't know if you can see this, but, well, I'm in control of the camera, I can do whatever the hell I want. So there you go. You notice what I got is the spacer in there, and then I got the nut, and I'm going to kind of just use my thumbs to push this to the side here, and it's going to hold that nut in space, so I can kind of just thread this in there a little deeper. Okay, so just want to give just enough so we can get that metal spacer in there. So that metal spacer is the next piece. Now I'm going to use my other finger underneath just to hold kind of all that in place, and I'm slowly turning right now just so we can kind of get that in threaded in that other nut and kind of get in there. I'm going to get just enough at this point. Keep pushing through just enough so I can mount. You can see that nut keeps spinning, so it's going to take a second here. Let's see if I can get something around that. I'm going to go ahead and grab the wrench that came with the kit. It's a little thinner, so you can kind of get it in there. So it's just a little tiny piece that will come in there, and what you can do is I can hold it with my thumb, and I'm going to slowly do it. Now it's holding that nut in place. That's a lot easier for me right now. So the next bit is we want to put on the actual belt tensioner portion. So this is what's going to hold that belt. So let's see if we can get that somewhat in there. Quite a bit of things I'm holding on to at the moment, but you can get the point where we're going here. Put that in there. And so what I might try to do before I completely do the belt tensioner on there is I'm going to put it inside of the belt itself. So you see there, I have it in the belt, and now I'm going to kind of loop it around, get it in that hole there so we can start putting this through. Okay, there we go. Kind of holding everything up against it so that nut holds in place. Just enough pressure to get that other nut. Now it's going to be popping out on the other side. Now this is the part where I likely drop things, because we've got to slide that other section in there. Oh, there we go. Drop one. Thankfully it stayed on the table this time. You have just enough room to get this in there, so you have to really be pretty good at this part. You got to get it right in there. Alright, let's see what I can do might have to kind of come back just a tad. So it's probably going to be one of my more complex ports. On the other side, you're just really having not quite a lot of space to do this. I wonder if I could push it from the bottom up and kind of hold it. I almost need to, I'm sure there's like a really smarter way to do this, and here I am just fumbling through. You know what? Let me rethink this for a second. So I got it in the hole, got all those pieces in. It's funny, I built this kind of before I realized that I was going to try to do this live with the belt on there, and it wasn't as hard because I could switch this, I could move this to the side, so maybe actually I can't take it off there, because if I took it off then I would have it already too deep on there. So I'm going to let that just set there for a second. So where we're at right now is I need to get this little tiny dude to kind of fit on the left side of that ball. So I need to find something. I'm going to see if I have a string or something that can kind of hold it in place. Don't have quite a string, but what I do have is these pliers here. So let's see if I can't use that to hold it into place. Alright, just kind of threading it in there. Okay, I got it in there. Now the hard part is you're going to have to use your other third hand. Oh, I'm pushing everything against it. We're going in. This is good news, ladies and gentlemen. We have it through almost to the other side. Alright, so now we're going to have to continue on with the remainder of what we have. So what we have at the very end is another spacer. We have another nut, and then finally on the very end of it we're going to be able to put that nut. So I'm pretty confident that we have done a pretty good job at getting this pretty well put together. And you'll notice that I kind of leave everything a little loosey-goosey on this guy right now, because you want to be able to have some flexibility at moving things around. So let's go ahead and finish up. So here we go. You'll notice that we got the majority of it put together. And put on that other nut on the other end, so I can kind of reach in there and hopefully hold it on there. If I just catch the threads of it, which I did catch the threads of it. So going through. Now I'm going to go get my other spacer. And I'll leave that on there for just a moment so you can really see kind of what I've been working on. Alright. Got my finalized spacer. This is probably going to be the one that is the tightest of the fits. So I don't want there to be too much coming out. I think I'm going to use my same method as before, as I'm going to use the pliers. It seemed to work before. Kind of put that on the end, because this is where it's going to fit pretty flush inside there. There's that drop I was talking about. I don't want to hold too tightly on this this piece of plastic, because it seems like it breaks. So I'm going to kind of come back. I'm going to back off of this for just a second. I'm feeling like this is a very tight fit on this end, which is fine. You want that. You want it to have some flushness. Okay, we got it in there. Oh, almost got it in there. It's kind of like how many tools and spins can you do with only two hands? I feel very I have some problems here. Oh, keep dropping it. Normally I would edit this shit out, make it look like I'm a badass and put this together in 2 seconds, but that's not working quite well. Alright, there we go. I'm going to hold that in there, so I am pushing down just to give it a little bit of extra tension, and look at that, I got through. So we should be popping out on the other end here any minute now. Alright, we have our tensioner on there, ladies and gentlemen. Now we can go ahead and start putting these bolts on the other side. Get that right now, get that started up. Okay, so what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to use this tool that they have just to give myself a little bit of tightening on these nuts. I'm calling the right thing finally. And so now what the question is where do you want to tighten first? So one of the things I think I want to do is I'm going to try to position it where it was before. And I had looked, and I didn't really zoom the camera in, I just took a mental note of it, but I looked where the wheel was when it was prior, and I had the other piece on, where that first wheel was, and I noticed it was just a couple millimeters away from this bar right here. So I'm going to kind of put a little bit of tension on it here, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to start tightening up this so we can mount it to the frame. So I'm going to start with this back right corner. I'm sure you could start with whatever you want, but just felt like that was a good corner to start with. I'm going to try to make sure everything's really level, everything's kind of positioned. Give that a little bit of tightness. I'm going to pop over to this other side and I'm going to do the same thing. And you'll notice those little things that I've been talking about, I don't know what the heck they call them, but they twist. They twist inside there and it holds it into place. It's really nice. It just fits within that railing. So I was saying it's highly modifiable, this kind of a device. So I'm going to get all these things tightened down. I'm not going to tighten them completely tight yet. I just want to get them loosely fitted in the position so they're flush, but not really wrenched down quite yet. I want to make sure the whole thing is straight, plumb, level, all the different terms that you might call, because as you can see right here, we're going to really want to make sure that this is straight as well. So I am going to pull this out. Okay, there we go. So at this point, what you're probably trying to do is, there's a little bit of room to move this in. It looks like it's kind of a universal tightener. So you could kind of adjust it based off how your machine is, because I'm gonna make a prediction that this is not the only kind of printer that you could do this on, this Creality. There's likely someone out there that's going to be putting on some other device, and so when they do, you'll have this terribly long video with the guy rambling on how to put this tensioner on his machine. Normally, I wouldn't be in here just talking to myself like this. I'd just be quietly listening to music, drinking my coffee. Oh crap, I gotta drink some coffee. Can't forget your coffee. So there's this really good place where I live, and they have this thing called Solar Roast Coffee, and that's what I'm drinking today. I have this cool cup too, if you like these kinds of cups. Alright, coffee break over, back to the thing at hand. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just tightening these guys. I want them to hold this in place. I'm pretty confident that that's where I want my belt tension to set, or at least be mounted to the rest of the printer. Right now I'm noticing the belt is just a little loose, but not as loose as when I originally took off the first belt tensioner. Right now it has just a little bit of play in it, but not enough to say that I would be happy with how tight it is. So getting it to the frame is kind of my first thought, or at least my first step right now, is to tighten this guy up, because I'm feeling really good about that. And the next bit is I'm just going to slightly pull out on the tensioner here, not too hard, but what I want to do is I want to have enough tension on there. It feels pretty good. Oh yeah, that's about the amount of tension I want. Get him up to the amount of tension that you should be on there. I'm sure there's a more scientific way to figure out exactly how much tension you should put on one of these things. If I ever figure that out, I'll let you know more. But I'm gonna hold this little bolt that's in here, and I'm gonna tighten it up just to where it feels pretty good and tight on that. Now I want to make sure that this part right here is straight, and that you have a 90-degree angle on both sides when you tighten it up. So it's somewhat in the place that I want it to be. I'm feeling like this is exactly where my belt tensioner should be. So I'm going to come over here and thankfully I think I have this one will fit on here. At least it will. Go ahead and put that over the nut. And now I'm just going to tighten my belt tightener. I want the ends of this, and you don't want it to be so tight that the bearings aren't going to work, but you do, well, actually, you know what? I think those metal spacers are touching up against the bearings in just a perfect way that I can tighten this up a little bit. I saw a few things online where this belt tensioner was kind of bent in the middle, and I don't really want that to happen on mine. So I'm looking straight down from over the top of this right now as I'm looking at this. You're seeing it from a slight angle, but I'm going to tighten that guy up right there. Feeling like this is pretty good. So it's kind of popping out on that left-hand side. As I turn this, I'm watching my Y index. Well, let's just show you what's going on here. So, let's see this guy out. So there's that belt tensioner. A little back up. And you'll notice that as I pull this back and forth, seemingly working quite well. I noticed it's about tight as I want, so as I need a little bit more tightness, I can give that little belt tension to that. So let's go ahead and turn on the Creality and see if it's going to do the things we need it to do. So let's see if I can get it back to home. That will be a good little test of this tensioner right now. So here's what I could do is kind of give you an idea of what I'm doing on the Creality screen. If you'd like to see that, it's always a fun thing. So I have a couple webcams here. This one's one of my crappier ones, but I always throw it up on the screen. It makes it kind of nice. So really what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to prepare and way too long. Sometimes I spin that wheel. Prepare, and we're going to go for an auto home at this moment. So let's go ahead and do auto home. And I almost jacked up my GoPro. Good thing it didn't go too far back, because that would have been terrible. I didn't notice that before. You can see that GoPro on there. Well, it looks like it is moving back and forth, so that's a positive there. Well, there we have it. Belt tensioner has been installed. I can give it, a subtle bit of a turn here. A couple things that I did to modify this belt tensioner, other than what I bought from Amazon, is you'll notice that I put a couple washers in here, and then there's a little lock washer that I put in the middle there, because I kind of felt as though as I start to do some of these tensions that it might loosen itself in a sense, so I really wanted to lock in place. That's what I had done. And I had also used a different bolt than the one that was provided. Otherwise I'd be having to mount this really a lot further out than I wanted to. So I have a kit of all these different M bolts or whatnot and such, so I could do that. The other one I noticed stuck out a far distance, and if I ever wanted to come in here and try to hold that, actually I don't know if I could even do it with this kind of a deal here. But what I have been doing is putting my finger into here and just kind of holding that in place as I do some of that tensioning. Now one thing that you'll notice is that there's the tensioning component and then there's the locking it down. Okay, so you use this to help kind of pull it out, get it in the place that you want it to, and then this is where you need to use it to lock it in place. And right now I can see that subtly it's kind of turned to the side a little bit. I don't like that. I think I need to make a quick adjustment to kind of undo this side of it. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to loosen it up a little bit. Let's see how I can get this a little bit straighter. There we go. I'm not sure how much that actually makes a difference on this. but I'm gonna make the prediction that it does make some bit of difference. You don't want it dragging and rubbing, so you just want to keep that in line. And I'm wondering if maybe these nuts need to be tightened in such a way that I tighten it towards the end here. There we go. And then this one I'm gonna get into place. Let's see which direction I'm going. So what I'm doing is I'm using these nuts to actually go towards the edges right now. I think that might be, so this particular nut I'm tightening this way, this particular nut I'm tightening this way, just to give it a little bit of pressure. They're pretty loose, but there's just, I don't want them touching up against that right this second. When I tighten it up, that will happen. And so what I'm having to do is I'm having to pull back on this left-hand side that you're seeing. And pulling back is giving you just enough ability to kind of keep it straight, and then I'm tightening. So I'm pulling back this direction as I tighten this way. Okay. So I'll probably play with this over the next couple days, do some little tune-ups. I might like take these and untighten it and kind of move it back a little bit. But the whole goal is, and what I'm trying to kind of prevent, which I can see happening right now, is that that belt is kind of going over to this left-hand side here. It's pushing over to the left. And I'd rather it be pretty centered. So I'll just keep it watching it and run a couple more prints. And if I notice that this belt starts moving around or sliding too much, I can always use this belt tightener to tighten it up. Thank you for watching today's video of Abdomatic Vision on 3D printing so far. Hopefully this helped you out. Showed you some cool stuff that you can do in terms of upgrading your printer. Maybe in the future we'll do some other ones. I'm actually going to go in and upgrade my other side. I have a, I guess which one is that? The X-axis belt tension that I want to add in there. I'll probably do that in a little bit here. We'll see if I do it today or if I do it tomorrow. Thanks. You have a good day. Peace.